One of the other extreme weather events of 2012, of course, was Hurricane Sandy, again, where there's too much water for a period of time, 13-foot storm surge in Manhattan. You're on the Appropriations Committee that wrote American taxpayers wrote $60 billion to those states. I'd like to hear your thoughts about that and whether the federal government will do that again next time, be able to keep bailing out cities as extreme weather affects American cities.
Well, I think we all remember the earthquake, Loma Prieta, and I think we also remember the earthquake at Northridge and the enormous damage that these big quakes do. We sit in what's called the ring of fire for earthquakes, and the probabilities for a big one are up. And the earthquake, these big ones have happened on the tip of South America, they've happened in Southeast Asia, Fukushima with all the damage that was done. So it's going right around the Pacific with these huge earthquakes. And it hasn't come down through. Alaska's had big earthquakes. We have nuclear powered plants. We have 4 big reactors right on the ocean. So if something happens, the federal government must come to the aid. There's no question about that in my mind. And I think that what happened on the East Coast with the flooding, and I was just reading a newspaper today where California has serious flooding risks as well. Right. So we all may need federal help sometime. And if it's a real emergency, that money should be forthcoming.
Some people in Florida have even gone so far to kind of basically get a promissory note for future disasters that may hit Florida.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
It's in the House to try to get the federal government to sort of pledge in advance, because New York and New Jersey had a hard time getting their money last time.
Well, that's right, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, we have to do that. Now, I know there's debt, I know there's deficit, but you can't let people have their homes wiped away and everything they own destroyed and not provide some help. I mean, what do we have a government for?
There's a possibility that states and cities won't do some things to protect against sea level rise and extreme weather if they think the feds will come to their aid. Oh,
you have to do this anyway, because the climate has already warmed at least 1 degree over 100 years. And people, I think, don't really understand. They think the earth is immutable. They think we can't destroy it, that it's here to stay, and that it's always been this way. It's not so. Some 200 plus million years ago, there's geologic evidence to say that maybe there was only one landmass on Earth, and it all split apart. I don't know whether that's true or false. I've read a lot of science on that subject. But ever since the Industrial Revolution, when we began to pump carbon dioxide through fuel into the atmosphere is very limited. It's maybe 7 miles up, and that's it. And it's like a shell. And so every bit of this that's pumped into the atmosphere stays. It doesn't dissipate. So as we fill the atmosphere with pollutants, methane, carbon dioxide, other things, what happens is it warms the earth. And it begins with animal habitat disappears. It begins with the ocean beginning to rise. It begins with more violent hurricanes, tornadoes, funnel clouds in the Pacific, where in my youth, they never used to be. They are now on occasion. And lightning strikes. I remember one June where there were 1,000 lightning strikes that started hundreds of small fires in California. When it rains, the drops are bigger, the rain's more violent, drought is more prevalent. So I think, actually, what's going to be the ultimate changer is weather. People see weather. They see hurricanes. They see the devastation. And so I think eventually people are going to come around to support restrictions on carbon dioxide, maybe a fee on the use of carbon that goes in to replace our deficit, our debt. A $20 fee, I think, is like 1.2 trillion in revenue over 10 years. If you just take half that, it's 600 billion. So,
is there much support for that in the Senate?
And it accomplishes something. I wouldn't say there's much. I would say this: people are coming to realize now, and we have a little caucus that meets and discusses. We've had, I think, 3 global warming bills up. They didn't get, I think they got 36 or so votes, but everything's getting worse. The weather is getting worse, and the climate change is getting worse. And actually, since 2008, good energy has doubled. That's the good thing, that, you know, electric cars are being more prevalent, hybrids are being more prevalent, people are saving money. So good things are happening.